In Belfast, when you were in Belfast this October, you said that it was a mistake to ridicule these right-wing protesters. Why is that?
These are people, I'm basically judging by what I see and read about them, listening to talk radio and so on. But my strong impression is that these are people with very real grievances. Mm-hmm. The grievances are justified. They've been shafted for over 30 years. They give the impression of being hardworking, serious people who think they've been doing everything right. They've been doing what you're taught you're supposed to do. They're God-fearing, hardworking, gun-carrying, patriotic Americans. What are they doing wrong? And how come that their lives are so crummy? Yeah. How come that if you open this week's copy of Business Week, the main business journal, the front page story, which has something like Wall Street versus America. And then when you go in and read the story, it's a blistering expose of how bankers and lawyers and in the background economists have sold sort of snake oil trickery to unsuspecting municipalities and people and so on, which had all kind of devious devices in it, which they're now exploiting to crush education, transportation, decent homes. I mean, basically just crush people while they have money pouring out of their pockets and they don't know what to do with it. Well, okay, that's a reason to be upset. And people feel it in their lives. So I think it's completely wrong to ridicule them. I mean, maybe the answers that you can ridicule I wouldn't even ridicule the answers that are being given to them. I mean, for example, I just happened the other day to be listening to Rush Limbaugh interviewing Sarah Palin. Oh, God. Okay, it's easy to make fun of what they were saying,
yeah,
but I presume they're sincere. Like if Limbaugh says, and asks a question, he says, what do you think about this junk science that the elitist liberals are trying to foist on us about global warming just in order to take away your jobs? And Sarah Palin says, yeah, of course it's not. Just use common sense. Look out the window. I mean, do you see palm trees? Okay. I mean, you can see why it's not just ridiculous. It's a death sentence for the species.
Right.
But there's no point. There's no point approaching people and saying that. People have genuine grievances. They're not getting answers. The answers they are getting are not only crazy, but extremely dangerous. So the right response is to ask ourselves, why are we failing to organize these people?
Yeah, why do you think that, especially because a lot of people on the left and the right are protesting similar circumstances? They're protesting because they're losing money to Wall Street. They're protesting because they don't have health insurance. Why do you think that we can't be unified when we're really going after the same people?
Because we have not succeeded in unifying people. It's our fault.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, if we can't take say health insurance. I mean, most people believe it's just a right. The idea that health care should be determined by wealth, not need, is so profoundly immoral that I'm sure if you can approach people and talk about it seriously, they'll agree. Now, there is an ideology which has been drilled into people for 50 years of intense propaganda by the business classes. We have a highly class-conscious business class. They are deeply imbued with Marxist conceptions. They're vulgar Marxists fighting a bitter class war. They happen to be on the other side, but that's their conception. And you have to control the mass of the population with concepts that will be self-destructive for them and beneficial to us. And one of them has to do with the role of government. So there is, it's claimed to be a sort of a deeply rooted American feeling that we don't like government. There's nothing to that. I mean, the business ideology has a very specific and rather sophisticated goal to achieve. It has to make people hate government, but also to love government, because the business world wants a very powerful state, but working for them, a nanny state, conservative nanny state it's sometimes called. So Reagan, the hero, for example, was a great apostle of big government. He was the most protectionist president in post-war American history by far. He enlisted state power to try to overcome the backwardness and incompetence of American managers and industrialists. And of course, believed in violent intervention all over the world. And that's radical statism. He was very much opposed to free markets. I don't know about him, maybe I mean him as a symbol for his administration. But they've managed to create him as a kind of an apostle of free markets and small government. Now the idea is to make people hate the government when it's doing anything good for you, but love the government when it's doing something good for us. And that's a tricky thing to carry off. And it's been carried off very effectively. And you can see it all the time. So take healthcare. People are deeply concerned that if the government is deciding on how healthcare should work, they're attacking us. On the other hand, if private corporations do it, that's somehow benefiting us. Well, private corporations are far more tyrannical than the government. I mean, whatever you think of the government, at least it's somewhat accountable to the population. There are ways to influence the government. There's no ways to influence a private tyranny like a health insurance company. They're unaccountable to the public. So they're totalitarian institutions, pretty much unaccountable to the public, and they do what they like. And there's nothing much you can do about it. On the other hand, if there's a government program, you can influence what it does. But a conception has been created by massive propaganda campaigns that it's the government that's the enemy, not the private corporations, although they're a far worse enemy. And the government is one of the few ways of protecting people from them. But if we haven't gotten that across, it's our fault.